says, seems to me there was a tea party in Boston that was illegal, too.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold.
We shall seek to establish and maintain a dollar which will not change its purchasing and debt-paying power during the succeeding generation.
As anguished shrieks rose up from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange.
Government credit and government currency are really one and the same thing. A reserve of gold and a small reserve of silver.
So, and I said, well, what if it does happen? And he says, well, price will solve everything. I said, thanks, give me the gold. You know?
Why do central banks hold it? Well, it's a form of reserves. So why don't they hold diamonds? Well, it's tradition, long-term tradition.
Well, some people still think it's money.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. You're on the Junius Malpe channel. It's live. The extemporaneous ramblings of a madman. Unscripted. Here, having my fizzy drink because I just didn't have time to make tea and I didn't want to leave you guys waiting. I was already a minute late. I had to go check on Mrs. Malpe. She's a little ill today. She's resting in the other room. So just keep her in your thoughts, in your prayers. Build back better, Mrs. Malpe. She's resting in there. Today's going to take us in a few different directions. I got so much stuff pulled up. Long couple of days, a lot of work going on, a lot of other things being keeping us distracted. But I've been in tune, watching the news, reading the articles, getting your forwards, getting information from other sources, friends, contacts, field correspondents of the Junius Malpe channel. A lot of information out there. But one of the things I wanted to start off with today was a reminder for all of us, a kind of a sober assessment at this whole situation. And I'm going to warn you. I'm going to warn you right now. It's going to be upsetting. It's going to make you mad. It should. It really, really should. This is something that should anger all of us. And it was just, I don't know, I wanted to get back to the basics, the fundamentals, because sometimes when we go back and we rewind the tape and hit play again, when we back up and we block out all the noise and we just go, let's simplify it, man. Dumb this down. Talk to me like I'm 5 with this stuff. Because economics is kind of simple, really. I mean, it is. Carl, good to see you, friend. Thank you for the support of this channel. Thank you for the super chat. Huge, amazing. I very much appreciate it. Very humbled by generous people like yourself. I mean, that goes for all of you, channel members, patrons, Patreon members. I can't thank you all enough for what you do, keeping this channel going. Motivation, support, everything that keeps it alive and invigorated and energized. You guys in the chat there talking and just giving this channel the soul and the personality that it has. I mean, honestly, this channel is you guys. You're the genetic makeup. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't return. It would be just no conversation at all. We wouldn't be talking about this stuff. But it's because of you we're here, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I mean it. I mean it. Now, I got a guy up here working. A lot of people do a lot of different jobs. A lot of people bust their ass out there. Calloused hands, broken backs. They sacrifice themselves. My dad was on a job when he was a young man starting out in construction, and a guy gave his life, essentially. He fell off of some scaffolding, broke his back, ended up a paraplegic the rest of his life, doing construction, building something for somebody else. And that happens every day in this country. Casualties of the economy, construction, labor, they put their lives out there. Men get electrocuted. They catch diseases. They get ill. Exposures to various toxins and carcinogens. It's hard. It's rough out there. And how do we compensate that? We get these units of account, right? These mediums of exchange, these notes, Federal Reserve notes. I mean, we've been talking about money. We talk about gold and silver. We talk about this. We talk about that. We talk about crypto. All these things. Everyone has their own idea of what represents some type of a medium of exchange or some valuation of what? Time. You're giving your time. Yeah, your labor, but it's your time. You're there. You could be doing other things. I'm sure, maybe this guy that you're looking at here doesn't want to be carrying multiple sheets of sheet metal and wearing his hard hat and his fluorescent vest and installing them or building or giving his time to somebody else. You're being compensated for your time. It's your time. It's your life. What is time? It's your life. It's a representation of a very limited resource that you have. Time. It's fixed. You don't get any more of it. Every hour or 2 hours that I've put into this channel, sitting here live for approximately 58 minutes or an hour talking to you guys, that's an hour of my life that I'm never going to get back. It's an hour you're never going to get back. But I don't mind talking to you guys. I don't mind having these conversations. Hopefully they're doing some good for others out there. I get some feedback from some positive sources that tell me that, hey, it does have an effect on some people, but it's not the point of this right now. Time being finite and fixed and a limited resource. I mean, you can't add sand to the top of your hourglass or salt or whatever your hourglass is filled with. I think mine's filled with gold dust. I would like to believe. If there's an hourglass that represents my life somewhere out there, I'd prefer that it's represented by, it's filled with gold dust, and it's just trickling out. But I can't add any more to it. And I think gold dust is actually a good example for all of us, because gold is another fixed and finite resource. It's limited. There's not a lot of it. You can't add any more to the earth with it. And that little trickling of sand, that gold dust that's in your hourglass or my hourglass, that represents time passing by. And funny, for thousands of years, that's essentially how people were compensated throughout history. We've examined that. We've studied that on this channel for a decade. Silver, gold, purchasing power. How we got to this point. How did we get to this point today? Banks are just falling apart. Fed's panicking, having to issue more and more and more liquidity that they don't have. There's bank runs. There's inflation. We'll look at some headlines. I got stories pulled up. We'll make fun. I'm sure we'll have some laughs. I know we're going to start off kind of sober today, kind of dark. Maybe we'll get some laughs in. I don't know. I don't know how I'm feeling about it. But I want you to focus on the time with me for a minute, because it's important. It's a very big part of this. I would say it's a keystone subject of this conversation. Time, money. Money is time. It's a representative. I've always said it's a store of your labor, gold. And they want over a third of it. It's tax season. They're going to steal your labor, right? That's the upfront way. That's the mugging way. That's where they kill you or put you in a cage if you don't pay forth what they want from you. If you don't give them theirs. You don't render unto Caesar. So you're giving about a third of your time to them. Now that's not enough. They want more than a third or a fourth or a half of your time. Depends what income bracket you're in. They want more. It's not enough for them. You see, they spend more time than you give them. When they steal your labor and your labor is converted into currency or units of account, mediums of exchange, liquidity anchors, whatever. I don't give a shit what you call it. When you give it to them, it's not enough. So what they have to do is they have to somehow sneak in and tap into your store of labor, your savings, what little savings you might have, what wealth you might have out there. And they rob that. They suck that life from you too. Through inflation. They devalue and debase your currency. And we know that. We've looked at that. They deny it. They lie about it. Some people don't think it's a threat. Some people denied that it ever happened. Or that it's, there's headlines all over. I was just seeing an article here. I pulled it up even. Some of the, if you want to get a laugh, go to the old transitory articles when inflation was supposed to be transitory. It wasn't going to be here for a long time. And yet here we are today. These people continue to steal our labor, the stores of our labor, through inflation. They rob you. They rob me. Now, it's so unjust, and you wonder what would people like this man here do? What would you do? What would I do if someone just blatantly walked up to you and stole a large portion of your savings or your wealth, just took it from you, took it right in front of you, just took it? It's a hard question. It's a difficult one to answer. What do we do? What do people do? It's happening every single day, and it's getting worse. The theft grows, it increases. You can see it. You can watch it. Every single day, it just ticks by. I was reading something that, and I'll read it here. I shared it with a lot of you, but I know some of you aren't on the Twitter and you're not on the community tab as often. So I'll probably have to just share it here with you. I'm going to read a piece. It's a really good comment. A friend of mine sent it to me. But this theft continues, and it's getting out of control. Out of control. We'll get to the comments here also. I promise you guys we'll try to navigate that way as we move forward. So just keep that in mind. When we're talking about all of this and these topics keep coming up, remember they're stealing your life force. They're stealing grains of sand, the very limited ones that you do have, out of your hourglass. They do it when they steal it through taxation, and they do it when they steal it through the inflation tax. And it's never enough, and they always want more. Which makes me wonder if they just want all of your life, if they want you to be a slave to the state. An eternal peasant. Well, you're not going to be, well, you are an eternal. You're all eternal beings. But while you're here on earth, they want it all. They want it all. There's nothing to stop the imploding quality of life in the United States. I'm going to read this comment to you. And again, I told you we're starting off dark today, but get with it. These are dark times. There's nothing to stop the imploding quality of life in the United States. The reality is the economy might implode or grow slowly or grow sideways, but that doesn't do anything for the common people who have a dismal future to look forward to. There is no one in Washington, outside of Ryan or Massive, which I don't even agree with that, who give a damn about the insanity of all the wealth flowing to the elite, disgusting, corrupt bags of in power. The Congressional Budget Office, CBO, projects that interest payments will total $640 billion in fiscal year 2023 and rise rapidly throughout the next decade, climbing to $739 billion in 2024 and $1.4 trillion in 2033. In total, net interest payments will total nearly $10.5 trillion over the next decade. Relative to the size of the economy, interest will rise from 2.7% of GDP in fiscal year 2024 to 3.6% in 2033. The best thing the Fed can do right now is buy time. And to do that, they hike 0.25 and say, we'll backstop. And this was written before they did the 0.25% hike that we said they would do. Hike 0.25 and say we'll backstop any bank to any amount, which is what they're saying. I.e., everyone keep calm, we've got this under control. Keep that going, and the sheeple may very well keep walking into the CBDC trap. Any deviation up or down, and this goose is cooked. It's going to be a wild ride. And my guess is the Fed holds it together longer than people think. And we all wake up to a fully implemented CBDC by year's end. Maybe they'll do it on Christmas Eve, like they did with the Fed. These are all great comments, again, sent to me by a friend of mine from, people like yourself. Again, this isn't a secret. This is out there. The truth is out there, and a lot of people thankfully know it. It gives me hope. I see it out there. I can tell. I mean, most of you see it. We go around, we read these things, we share these things, and it's obvious. This is out there. People know what's going on. A lot of people didn't. There was the transitory crowd looking at how much money the Fed was printing. We'll look at some charts of that in a minute. And then there was, when I shared this yesterday with all of you, it's worth it because we need to be able to doubt these people. You need to realize everything they say, the opposite is true. They are nonstop lying to you. And I shared this on the community tab yesterday. And it's just a list of all of the predictions that they got wrong. Things like Yellen telling us the financial crisis won't happen in our lifetimes, Powell talking about transient effects of inflation, Ben Bernanke saying the problem in the subprime market was contained, Bush saying that the system is sound, yada, yada. It goes on and on. It's endless. Everything they say, the opposite is true. They're lying to you. You have to realize that. And I think some people, like yourselves, already operate that way. Now, the masses, maybe not so much, but they're getting there. Some people are starting to wake up a little bit. I mean, we got to give them some credit. There's some people starting to question some of this stuff. I mean, not enough by far, which is why I think it will indeed crumble. Most people are too apathetic. I mean, I have my apathy to an extent, but there's a difference between being apathetic and ignorant and apathetic and knowledgeable of what's happening. You and I, some of us, we know exactly what's going on, and we just, well, it's hard for me to say I don't care. Is that even wrong to say? I mean, there's days where I do, though. There's days where I think, this is horrible. I think of the innocent. I think of more vulnerable sections of the population that are going to fall victim to this, that are going to suffer greatly because of the results of this. And I'm honest here. My heart does go out to a lot of people that are going to suffer greatly. There will be tremendous human suffering as a result of the actions and the policies of these people. They're destroying lives. They're destroying lives. And it's horrible. It's horrific. And they're going to get away with it. Because I don't think enough people will ever wake up in time to do anything about it. And I don't think they have the power to do anything about it. I think it's beyond that. The system itself almost has to just crumble and decay and die like empires do in order to be rebuilt better. It just doesn't seem like there's the momentum of this. It just seems it has shifted so far and it has moved so much so in one direction. I don't believe that we can ever bring it back. Not in a way that would make sense to anybody. So your labor's being stolen through inflation and through taxes, continuing so. It's about to get a lot worse. We're going to move now from what's just regular inflation to very high, not hyper. Remember, inflation will just eat about 96% of your wealth. Hyperinflation only eats about the other 4%. That's based on historical trends. So we're going to move into some really intense inflation soon. The kind that starts to cause more manifestation of societal problems. I mean, you're seeing it with the eggs. Of course, they blamed it on chickens. And of course, the chickens, it was their fault, right? You're going to see not only eggs, but all sorts of things that are in your basket of goods in your groceries rising. And we've already seen that, chicken and steak and different meats and such. But add some more velocity to that. You might have to start moving decimal points. All right? Adding digits. It's going to get worse. A lot worse. And that's not easy for some people because they're walking a razor's edge, a knife's edge, on absolute hardship and poverty, even hunger, and barely making it. And all it takes is just a little bit and they're on the other end. And that's where the policies of people like the bowl cut albino hobbit, J. Powell, the geriatric dementia pedophile executive branch leader, they're going to make it worse. And I got to be honest, they don't care. And the way you can tell they don't care is the nonstop BS that comes out of their mouths. The stupid tweets from Biden talking about the environment and this bill that he signed and that bill. Some people are giving him heck for it. You go online, you just see all the guy talks about is everything but the problem at hand. He refuses to address the elephant in the room. He can't because he's ignorant. He doesn't know what to do. His handlers, those who tell him what to say and write his speeches and fill out his teleprompter form and guide him around and talk in his earpiece, they don't know what to do. They're panicking. They're in vapor lock. Their OODA loop is off. Someone threw a flashbang in the room. They're in a fog right now. You can either believe that or it's 100% purposeful and willed, articulated, orchestrated, calculated, strategized, and tactically executed. We'll see. Siddharth Srikamal says, if karmic justice is true, imagine the amount of karmic backlash America is about to face, from the atomic bomb to regime change wars. I agree. Very astute point. Very good. Meddling throughout the world. destabilizing regions, and with its own self-interests, causing nothing but harm, constantly, like they're doing in Ukraine today, hurling the world and fomenting the world into World War III. But we're not going to get into that right now. We could. We've talked about it extensively. You guys know where I stand on that. We'll get into that. There is some stuff coming up. We're going to talk. There's some Pax Americana has its own tombstone now. It's over. The bear and the panda, some people call it the dragon. The dragon and the bear have made alliances, Russia and China. And they are going to change things that haven't been changed or altered for over 100 years. That's their words, not mine. Now, you guys saw gold go up today. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because you and I expected it. It's not news. $2,000 gold is not news. Yeah, we were here once before. What was that? Not too long ago. And we're back. We're back now. Here's your 5-year chart. We're back at 2,000. And hopefully this time, and I do believe this time it's going to have the ability to stay above that. And it's going to march its way much further. It has a lot more room to go. Again, this is the multi-decade bear run for the dollar, the multi-decade bull run for gold. I mean, the dollar is the only reason, again, that it exists at this point, with all of its fundamentals as flawed as they are, is the force and the violence and manipulations of exactly what Siddharth Sri Kamal. I know I'm getting it wrong. I'm sorry, Sri Kamal. Like he said, United States pushes it, forces it on its people. There's no competition of currency here. We've seen that. SEC enforces that. There can be no competition of currencies or circulating mediums of exchange in the United States. Anything that even tries to fill that gap or fill that role or compete with the dollar is immediately attacked. And gold has always been kind of the biggest challenge for them. They hate it. But it's running free. It's going to eventually, they're going to lose control because they don't have all the say. There's a lot of other votes. There's a lot of other nations. There's a lot of other people, a lot of other economies. You see, it's not a unipolar world anymore. It's a multipolar world. And there's powers that are challenging the dollar and those who issue it. Thank you, Steve E. Spoiler alert, God wins. Amen. It's true. There you go. Thanks for the support, my friend. Larry Hernandez. I want to keep this community alive. So here's a tip. It's alive, Larry. And I appreciate your support as well, man. Thank you. Some people like to talk about the gold price every day. Every 10 cents or every penny march. Every chart diagnosis and dissection and trend line and support level and flag and this and that. You know what? And I've made this clear, guys. I just don't care. I know where it's going. I know what it means. I know what it represents. I'm a diehard precious metals advocate. Again, that's why we talk about the ideology of precious metals, the ideology of stacking. We know where this ends up. We know where it's going with metals. And they're not the whole picture either. They're very important. All right, it's an anchor to this channel. I mean, it's where we started. It keeps me grounded in some of the topics that I want to cover, and a lot of it always ties back to this. But it's not the only thing that we need to look at and talk about and address here. It's definitely a big one. And it's a great way to keep these thieves from stealing your labor. That was the original intent of my motivation here to bring this channel to you guys and to have these conversations was, hey, look, the federal government and their relationship with the Federal Reserve, which isn't federal and has no reserves, this private banking leviathan, this evil cabal, they have a relationship. And through that relationship, they are able to steal your labor, your time, your life force, your life. They rob you of it. But you can lock it up away from them if you get into metals. And that was my whole point back then. That's where I still stand today. And I'm not wrong. I'm still not wrong on it. It's still true. And it's about to get worse. And I think that we're getting to a point where I think the on-ramps into metals are getting steeper for some people, and I think the doors might be closing soon. Not this year. I doubt it. I mean, I've been wrong. I mean, things have obviously gotten a lot worse, a lot quicker than I thought in the past, but I still think we have some time to acquire metals. They'll be more expensive, most likely. They'll be more expensive. It'll cost you more of your time, more of your Federal Reserve notes that you use to represent your time, or more of your euros or Australian dollars or renminbi or your yuan, whatever it is you use, pesos. But you've got both gold and silver. I mean, silver broke $23 an ounce today. Today's one of the first days that I saw gold really outpace silver, though, when looking at it. For the last month or more, we've seen silver pretty much do double percentage-wise anything gold would do. I'm not going to play this clip right here. We've seen enough of her. She infuriates me so much. But this is a good clip from Forbes on YouTube. Treasury Secretary Yellen testifying to the Senate Appropriations Committee. Number one, she couldn't find. I'll just keep it on mute. She couldn't find her when she's just shuffling through her notes, and has to essentially admit they haven't reduced the deficit. They're not even trying. It's not even something that they're trying to do. And they're not reducing the deficit. And they do their typical Fed speak. They dance around. They make a little noise. They act like they're prepared. They go through their notes. Most of this could probably even be considered scripted theater, even the questions that they have. There's no intention here, guys, to make the problems go away. Let me take a sip of this, my lemon fizzy water here. Just remember that. Ponder that for a second. There's no intent for them to fix any of this. They don't want to. There's not even a motivation to do it. And they won't fix it. They couldn't fix it even if they wanted to. That's the thing. Even if their intentions were pure and these people wanted to, they can't fix this. It's gotten to the point where it's mathematically impossible. You're just not fixing it. And we just saw earlier some notes on that. Are you kidding me? Trillions upon trillions of dollars just in the interest on this debt. And the problems are only getting worse. Yeah, they raised interest rates, right? Banks are continually getting run on. They're having to backstop everybody. There's no end in sight to the damages that are happening. The Wizards of Wall Street, like Cathie Woods, it's funny because she manages a big portfolio that's taken like an 80% beating, right? We give her a lot of heck. We make fun of her. And she's blaming the whole thing on the rising interest rates that hit her strategy like an earthquake, and a cyclical stocks are next. So she's basically saying it came out of nowhere like an earthquake. She didn't expect it. How did she not see rising interest rates? How did she not see this coming? How was she not prepared for it? She's probably going to want a bailout when her entire fund goes to zero. She'll probably ask for it. But it's getting destroyed. And here you go. Just to prove again. They have no intentions of making this better, no intentions of fixing it, no intentions of restoring order. Fed balance sheet surges by another $100 billion amid bank runs as foreign repos soar by a record and cash floods into reverse repo money markets. Thank you, Todd and Prepared. I see your super chat there. He says they can't fix this, even if intentions were pure. The empire is dying. History is being made in real time. Yes, this is history. We are witnessing history. You're witnessing the collapse of an empire. You're living through it. People often say, oh, I wonder what it was like. What was it like at this point in time or this point in time? Oh, if I could only go back and see what it was like at this time in history. Well, you can't. But you can observe this one. You could take notes. You could start a journal. You could look around you. You're seeing it. I've often joked with you when you're in this channel, my friends, when you're in this channel, you guys, all of you, and you're leaving your little comments there in the chat. Digital archaeologists, it's kind of a made-up job, I guess. One day in the future when they're going through the electronic archives of what was the internet, if it still exists or pulsates somehow, and they're perusing it and they're sifting through it with digital toothbrushes and digital spoons to scrape away debris and uncover the mosaic floor of what was once the Junius Maltby channel. They'll read your comments and they'll see them and they'll get a window or an idea into the thoughts, the minds, the articulations of people that were alive at this time. So throw something down for them. Say hello to the digital archaeologists and the digital FBI agents that when they show up. Bill Spencer, good to see you. Awesome. More rocket fuel. The much-awaited release of the Fed's latest weekly balance sheet updated was released at exactly 4:30 p.m. This was yesterday. And not surprisingly, it showed that... Was this yesterday? Let me see. Where's the date on that? This was today. This one's today. This is one of the Today articles. Yeah, I already went past the other ones earlier. And not surprisingly, it showed that in the past week, the bank bailouts continued, if at a less torrid pace. As of March 22nd, the Fed's balance sheet increased $94.5 billion to $8.73 trillion from $8.639 trillion, which in turn was a $297 billion increase from the previous week when the bank crisis started. In total, the Fed's balance sheet has increased by $393 billion in the past 2 weeks and is fast approaching its all-time high of $8.95 trillion 1 year ago when QT kicked in and shrank the Fed's balance sheet by $600 billion. So they tried to do the tightening, quantitative tightening. Right? These funny little words that they use, right? And you can see it in the chart there. They don't care. They just it's gone. They realize they can't taper anything. Wall Street and the banks have to have this free, easy money or they can't function. So there you go. They just pumped it right back up. It's like it never even happened. There was no tightening. And we're going to go right back into quantitative easing. These guys are in serious trouble. The system is broken. Banks don't have reserves. There's runs on banks. Oh. We'll take a look Friday when it comes up, and we'll see. How many banks do you think are going to close this Friday? I don't know. I actually don't know if there's going to be 1, 2, none. Any big ones? Any takers? Any predictions? Any calls? This is a huge and lengthy article called Your Money is Their Money, Part 1 from The Good Citizen. Good piece written here. There's 2 parts to this. I will not have the time to read it all to you guys today, but the links are out there. This is from The Good Citizen Substack. Your Money is Their Money, Part 1, the financial arm of the pandemic octopus and the coming engineered collapse. You thought I was the only guy out there that thought this, these dark things, these dark thoughts. No. There's a ton of us, a ton of you. And we've shared his articles before. Good Citizen does some good stuff. He points out a lot of things, but the biggest part of this that I'm going to want to get to is the end. But I want to show you this clip here. So just listen for a second. Let's not forget that the FDIC bankers held a meeting months ago talking about the collapse of banks, but didn't want the public to know and described it as professional need to know.
Should be accessible when people need to know, but I don't think you have much hope of reaching a public that doesn't have a professional need to know.
I completely agree with that. I almost think you'd scare the public if you put this out. Like, why are they telling me this? Should I be concerned about my bank? Like, my insurance company doesn't tell me what they're doing with my assets. They just assume they're going to pay my claim, right? I think you've got to think of the unintended consequences of taking a public that has more full faith and confidence in the banking system than maybe people in this room do. That we want them to have full faith and confidence in the banking system. They know the FDIC insurance is there. They know it works. They put their money in. They're going to get their money out. So there's a select crowd of people that are in the institutional side. And if they want to understand this, they're going to find a way to understand this. There's a bunch of law firms represented in this room. There's a bunch of people who charge them by the hour a lot of money to explain this all to them. And it's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And they all have huge staffs. But I would be careful about the unintended consequences of starting to blast too much of this out in the general public.
I wondered whether there are some market tests of whether you're being heard. And I think about TLAC. So TLAC should respond to good and bad news about the institutions. And it's really important. I mean, it's a little bit conflicted, right? I mean, it's important that people understand they can be bailed in, but you don't want a huge run on the institution. But they're going to be. And it could be an early warning signal to the FDIC and the primary regulators when these things happen. And there may be some other prices. This is similar to what Jay was saying in the market that you can tell whether people understand who's going to be protected, who isn't going to be protected. It would be, I think, an interesting.
They protect their friends, the Democrats.
Evolution of market prices in a situation like March of 2020, for example, and see whether people understood what might happen.
I'd like to go back to some of Dick's early comments. I do think it is hard to get a lot of demand for transparency right now in this sort of period of peacetime. But that is going to flip, and it's going to flip probably even faster than we saw in 2008, where the need for communications really quickly in the social media world to avoid disinformation, to have some holding patterns for things like, I remember in the early days of bail-in, people saying they're coming for my deposits, right? So just holding communications that you can pull out that are helpful to deal with disinformation, some very simple things, and how quickly you'll be able to deal with different constituencies. For example, as liabilities are further up and closer to harm's way, when are you going to be able to give them some comfort, if any? How do you deal with foreign operations? How do you communicate to some of those different groups? I think ex-ante preparation for the speed of scaling up and the ability to get information out to avoid rumors taking over the narrative strikes me as probably the place that feels like it's got the most benefit in a world where I think you've done a pretty good job of getting out the basics of Title II and some of the basic resources that are available now.
So they don't want you to know, and they only want you to know what they want you to know, and they want you to know when they want you to know it. Get it? It's a big secret. They'll know, though. Oh, and they'll move their stuff. And believe me, they'll get their money. Every guy in that room is probably sitting on some gold. Oh, yeah, they got some solid money. See the ring on that guy's finger? Big. Probably had a half ounce of gold just in that thing alone. These people don't like you. They look at you like sheep. You realize that? You're just being corralled and controlled. Look at how they talk about the people. They're like bugs in a terrarium. Thank you, Soggy Pineapple, for the super chat. The support, my friend. Says it's called quantitative teasing. It is. They're just teasing the banks. They're just teasing. Take a little bit away and then give them a little bit later. The thing is, you guys know this was coming. This is stuff we've been talking about the whole time. M2 money supply, up and then down and then up again. U.S. financial system on fire. The Fed just pouring gasoline on it. Meanwhile, this is what people think it looks like. This is what the average American sees. This is what it looks like. Right? This is what it really is happening. And this is what the average American thinks is going on. Everything's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, can you see this? Can you even see this chart? M1. Can you see this here? Just skyrocketing. We should get that centered right up there so you can see it. in billions of dollars, 22 thousands of billions, $20,000 billion. There it is. Just unbelievable. Now we've, again, hyperinflation. Just 2 calendar years after the end of the war, the paper mark was worth 10% of its original value. All cash savings had lost their value, and the prudent German middle-class savers were inexplicably punished. The value of 1 gold mark in paper marks is right here on this portion of the screen. By the end of 1923, it took 1 trillion paper marks to buy a single gold mark. I've shared this chart, these facts, this data with you since I started this channel. And this isn't the only case of hyperinflation that we've looked at. I know it often gets quite a bit of attention, a lot of focus. But it's happened elsewhere, and it's happened recently in other places. We talked about the Bolivar, Venezuela. We've looked even as far as Zimbabwe. I've shared the notes with you. I mean, just go back and watch the hyperinflation videos on this channel. You'll see them. You'll even see examples of all the notes, real ones. I've got my little hyperinflation graveyard of dead fiat. It's a good collection of paper. It's worth it. Now, moving on. Again, same article. This is part 2. And I want to share with you the end. So I'm going to scroll up. This is Dancing with the CBDC Devil. That's the title of this piece. And look at that. I grabbed Neo, made him look like he was moving. I'm trying to grab the other screen. I've got too many screens up to try to drag these images around for you guys. Who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. And who controls money can control the world. Henry Kissinger said that. Crazy. Nobel Prize winning war criminal. Now, again, if you want, you can read through these entire lengthy pieces here. I just don't have the time today about the CBDCs and all the things that we've talked about and all the things that are coming, and FBI showing up and questioning people about their tweets on COVID. What I want to get down to is how to protect yourselves now. This is the important conversation, you see. We already know what's in motion. But this guy just corroborates and validates a lot of the things that you and I talk about here already. He says, as if this needs restating for good citizen. I'll say the same thing to all of you. As if this even needs to be stated here on the Junius Maltby channel. Buy gold. Buy silver. Buy property where the state won't seize it if SHTF. Sell crypto before they blow it up. Have an emergency food supply, 90 days minimum. Fresh water supply. Many U.S. states still poison tap water with fluoride. Stock up on batteries, fuel reserves, first aid kits, prescription drugs that you can't wean off on your own. China controls 80% of the U.S. market. Medical tech and every other useful piece of kit you might need when the financial system collapses and supply chains with it. Get the hell out of the cities. I've said that for years to you guys. Get out, get out, get out. Get 2 fuel tanks away if you can. That looks like a pretty burdensome and arduous task to complete that list there. And so don't be stressed by it. I would say do your best at some of those things, but link up and have a good community, good friends, good people near you that have some of those things as well. Get around people that can work with you and work with each other, form some form of a community that's able to address various needs and issues with that you might need. You know, family, very close people that you can actually trust, people that you've known for a long time. I would say people you've known for 10 years at a minimum. Blank Man, thanks for the super chat. That sounds like a good one. He says, it's channels like yours that has helped open the people's eyes to what money really is. Thank you for your content, brother. Hope Mrs. feels better soon. I do too. I'll be checking on her shortly. See, humanity's taking a dark turn, friends. There's people talking about, this major war going up. And you know, I don't like to get too wrapped up in exact predictions of what we're going to see as far as the geopolitical situation, the war situation. But I'm going to share with you this piece here, and we'll talk about it as well. I don't think anyone knows exactly how this is going to turn out, exactly what's going to happen. But let's take a segue into this conversation for a minute. Let me get this centered up on the screen for you, if you haven't seen it yet. This is Xi Jinping and old Vladimir Putin just the other day. And if you can, try to read the subtitles. I'll try to read them with you. I'll read them for you. If those of you are tuning in from work or you're on earbuds or something. Yes, Bill Spencer, thank you for the super chat. It says Mexico is going to be joining BRICS. Yes, that is in the news as well. Here you go. Change is coming that hasn't happened in 100 years, and we are driving this change together. Please take care, dear friend. Have a safe journey. Have a safe journey. Can't imagine how tight the security was at that. Can you imagine? That had to be some tight security around there. You saw the security guys running just there to provide running security next to the vehicle. And then here you've got this is a zero hedge piece. Escobar in Moscow. Xi and Putin bury Pax Americana. Let's bring it up. In Moscow this week, the Chinese and Russian leaders revealed their joint commitment to redesign the global order, an undertaking that has not been seen in 100 years. That's what you just heard they discussed. They are setting up an alliance, essentially. And there's other nations involved. These are kind of the big boys of the gang, you know. Picture a little street gang somewhere, not a little one, but... and there's a couple of bigger dudes, older dudes, and there's some younger kids hanging out with them. All the little satellite nations they've got with them. There's a lot. All right. There's a major portion of the world that is very upset with the way the United States has been doing things and destabilizing things and causing problems and being greedy and being selfish and forcing its currency upon everybody and then devaluing it and debasing it and being the only ones that get to luxuriously live off of its forced adoption, right? Adoption. Forced usage, being the world reserve currency. We've had a lot of benefits from that. We've lived off of the fat of a world reserve currency for decades, and it's coming to an end, and that's going to result in a reduced standard of living and a lot of societal problems. There's going to be a tremendous breakdown here in the United States in all aspects. Every single neighborhood, every block by block, street by street. This is going to impact demographics, all of society, goods and services and trades and occupations, investment, and yes, the strength of the currency itself, the dollar, and the prices and valuations of commodities and things like gold and silver, purchasing power. If you want to maintain and somewhat try to be able to stabilize your standard of living when this multipolar world hits, and when it really starts to take off, you know, the biggest oil trade, I think, now in the world, the biggest oil seller, exporter is Russia. I think that was a headline just the other day. Big changes coming, ladies and gentlemen. Big, massive, historical changes. And you're sitting on the front seat of it. But you've also got an edge. You guys have an edge. And you know what it is. You've seen this coming. You've been preparing for it. You've been allocating your resources. You've been putting up your labor, stores of your labor, your time, that which represents your life that you've given to others or in the form of work service, here you are. Your store of labor is preserved. I assume somewhere it's safe, it's secure. You have weapons, you have ammunition. Anyone who tries to take it from you catches some of that, right? You'll execute violence upon them without question. Yes, Throckmorton, we're all going to make it. We should. We should. But this isn't your... That's why I've often said this is a different type of stacking channel, right? This isn't, I'm not going to sit back and just tell you everything's okay. I'm going to tell you how I really see it. This is how I truly, really, really, really see it, right? Now there is a portion of me, or part of my outlook, I guess, where I try to think, okay, there's got to be some type of contingency or some other part of this timeline. Maybe there's an off chance where things are going to be not as bad. All right. And I've been continually wrong on that when it comes to my optimism. I have failed in being pessimistic enough. And that's my own fault. There's definitely room for me to increase my pessimistic outlook, because honestly, I didn't see much of this as far as how bad this is today at this point. And it's probably my own fault. I sometimes get distracted from the darkness that surrounds us and penetrates this universe. And I find myself often, that's why I went back to this photograph here, in places kind of like this. This obviously isn't my place. This is in the article here. This is a beautiful pastoral scene of a log cabin nestled among, towering alpine peaks, willows and trees and beautiful forests in the distance. You can almost smell it. But sometimes I look, instead of at the ugliness in the world, I'll go for a hike, or I'll go out in the woods, and I'll try to find places that are more beautiful and more eternal. Because if you ever want to know how temporary empires are, how temporary the things that man builds are, just go take a walk in the woods, man. Go find an old growth forest. You'll find trees towering above you that germinated during the Roman Empire. And they're still alive today. They're out there. There's trees like that alive today. Go take a walk in the sequoias, or go take a walk in the bristlecone pines. You can even find some very large old growth trees and firs and spruce in different parts of the North American continent, and even oaks that are quite old. Mountains and rocks that have existed for eons, epochs. This is all temporary. The stuff that man's built it's gonna crumble, it's gonna decay, it's gonna rot. You and I, eventually the sand will leave our hourglass and we'll perish. But we'll do the best that we can while we're here, right? While the hearts are beating, while we're still breathing. Do what's right. Do what's good. I don't always focus on this stuff. I've got other hobbies, other interests. I find myself germinating seeds, planting trees. I've got to go scout out and plant a bunch of trees coming up soon on a piece of property and for a friend. I'm also germinating tons of my own little trees right now. I've collected a lot of seeds this year that have been germinating in a room, and I'm nurturing those little plants. Mrs. Maltby has her little orchids and plants and things that she's growing and nurturing, and you got to find yourself with other interests. You got to detach from this sometimes. I log in here with you guys. I'll have this conversation for an hour. I have these conversations with my friends. Sometimes I get a little too intense on it. Sometimes I'm a little too invested in what's happening right now and trying to get the latest headlines as it unfolds, especially last week when things were really ripping. But look, all in all, you know where it's going. I know where it's going. And if one day I don't see you in the chat because you've had enough, you're punching out, you're done talking about this crap. You've packed your go bag, you've got your medals, you're moving out, you're ditching your phone so they can't track you anymore. You're going dark, you're going low tech, and you're going off grid. Friend, Godspeed. I'll see you on the other side. I wish you the best. Do it. Take care, my friends. That's it for tonight. I'm going to read one more super chat I got from Todd and Prepared. He says, my girlfriend just bought her first silver coins. She now listens to the channel. Yes, hiking is great solitude. Yes. Excellent. Get out. Get out into the woods. Detach from this. Disconnect from it. Turn off the noise. Don't watch a single video. Don't watch any YouTube videos. Don't even log into a website. Don't look at CNBC. And let me tell you something. If you guys are on social media, delete that stuff immediately. Facebook, Instagram. It's just trying to keep up with the Joneses. I mean, unless you're out there trying to agitate and stir stuff up and spread truth, then that's it. That's great. Throw them off, cause distractions, use a pseudonym, whatever. Do what you got to do. If you're out there fighting the meme wars, keep at it. If you're out there, assaulting the left, the Marxists, the progressives, do it. Hurt their feelings. Break them down. Fight the fight. But that's it, my friends. That's it for today. I appreciate all you guys being here. Yes, gold's up. Things are still going on. We know where it's going. But I'm going to wish you all good night. Take care of yourselves, all right? Be well. See you on the next one.